Welcome to this enlightening Samvadh featuring a conversation with a renowned psychologist, Aarti Rajaratnam. Today, we explore a topic that often puzzles parents, the myth of laziness in children and adolescents. It is not uncommon for parents to label their children as lazy when they seem disinterested or unmotivated. Ma'am, how can we distinguish between laziness and other factors?
Now, primarily, I'd like to set the record straight. There is nothing called laziness. No one is lazy. Okay, because this is a very judgmental statement. Because we assume that some level of activity is normal, we assume that some level of activity is acceptable, and so anyone who doesn't match up to that is considered lazy. It's a very relative definition. So for example, I'm somebody who walks in the morning, I work all day, I'm quite workaholic in that sense. So when I see somebody who's not doing that level of work, I'm going to naturally call them lazy. And this is something that has unfortunately come down to the level of children, because we are calling children who are not able to work all day, every day, as lazy children. So this is where I would call it a myth.
So what about those children who are not motivated to work or participate in activities, or would like to just, now I can't say the word lazy, what do I say, ma'am?
Just chill in their words, you know. So basically, I'd like to explain what happens. As a child, if I have a set of skills, I will go all out to show it. So if you want me to write, I will definitely write if I know how to write. When I will refrain from writing is one where you're expecting me to write in a very perfect form or in a particular speed or for a very long time. So I realize that if I do this, I'll be given more work. Or if I do it this way, she'll make me do it again, she'll erase it again, she'll make me write again. So the child, over a period of time, after having...
The way I do it, the reactions are either very severe or bitter, then
Yes.
I'm afraid of those
Reactions. So basically what happens is, for young children, when behavior is being shaped, whatever our response or reaction is, it will decide to a large extent if they will continue with it or if it will stop. When it comes to tasks like reading, writing, and usually parents call children lazy only when it's reading and writing or some academic skill. We don't call them lazy if they're just sitting and playing on a gadget. We don't call them lazy. It's only with the academic areas that many parents tend to brand their young children. So parents need to understand that if children have the skill, they will definitely do it. And if they're not doing it, they need to go back and reflect, number one, on, am I being too punitive? Am I expecting a lot? Or am I making them repeat work when they finish fast? So these three questions will by and large decide if the child will want to continue the task. And the solution to this would be very simple. If the child doesn't have the skill, to break it down into simpler units. If the child has the skill and I've been very punitive, then to take a supportive approach. And if the child is able to do it and I've been giving them more work, then to be very reasonable with my expectations and let them know this is how the task will start and this is how it will end, and if you've finished fast, you can go and play.
Ma'am, while you explained that there is no term called laziness and there are factors why they don't do a certain work, is it the same in young adults like teens, ma'am?
In teenagers, there can be other contributing factors for the lower energy level. Right? And I'm going to use the word lower energy because at that time they're going through a lot of hormonal changes and structural changes at the level of the brain. Now, when testosterone is very high and they've not been able to regulate that, for girls, when there is high progesterone and they're not being able to work through that, it can show up as a lack of energy. And you'll see them actually just sitting down and daydreaming or staring into space, things like that. So we need to, at that point, question, do they have sufficient sleep? Because for teenagers, the sleep is the most restorative process.
At the same time, that is something the parents are not able to really guide the children. I won't say guide, but even tell them, put a boundary on that about sleep, because nowadays it's become very cool not to sleep early. So
generally this generation of teenagers are owls. They like to stay up very late, but even if they do stay up later than the parents, it's always nice to have a respectful conversation about health and letting them know that these are the impacts that it can create. And when it comes to hormonal changes, we can't bring about long-term change without rest. Because if the filter mechanism, the glial cells in the brain, do not get sufficient rest, they cannot filter out toxic hormones or excess hormones in the brain. That's the first. And the second is they need physical activity. Unfortunately, with a lot of teenagers now, that physical activity is absent, either because they live in smaller spaces with less access to sport. Second, they're in so many coaching classes and academically driven classes that they don't have this. On an average, boys require about 350 minutes a week as physical activity to be able to balance out the hormones in the brain. And it's not just physical activity. With boys, it must be, a contact sport where they're able to play in a small space, actually vent out aggression, etc., with another set of boys. And that's a very important, basketball, those kind of things. So the field games would be very, very good, because I know parents who come and say, I've sent him for yoga. Yoga is very good for many things, but for the teenage hormonal balance, sometimes this kind of work is important. Girls, on the other hand, require about 250 minutes a week as physical activity, and they also need, in addition to that, opportunities to talk with friends, because girls vent out a lot of this energy through conversations. And this gender difference, if it's not respected, can become a very big problem. A teenager who's not had opportunities for this will seem unmotivated and lazy, as our topic goes. So if we can understand this, it'll help us steer their energy towards things where they can consistently perform.
that's really interesting to know. So besides hormones, there is also the other three factors you have expressed in the young children, about young children. Do they also apply to teenagers, like too much expectations from the parents, punitive, and the third one is
making them repeat things when they've done something well. Those are going to be there all through life. Just like, if we were to retake a particular shot 15 times, after a point you're going to say, let's not do this because it's already 15 times. Once or twice we don't mind. So that is definitely something that's happening. And with this competitive entrance exam culture that's come in, we tend to make children study the same portion all through the year, every day. And it's such a difficult thing for the brain to do boring things and repetitive things, when especially the teenage brain is geared for change and risky behaviors. So yes, those three factors also. And another additional factor here, there is the peer influence. When this current generation, with all its social media and all of this, there is a lot of peer influence. And when they notice that the peers are doing better than them, or are putting their highlight reels on social media, that also contributes towards an emotional low. They feel very moody, and the moodiness is often also misdiagnosed or misunderstood as a form of laziness. And parents think that just by pushing them and saying, no, we used to walk, we used to play, it doesn't. You have to join them to help them change. I've seen parents saying, go out for a walk, but they're sitting down at home with a sedentary lifestyle, and the children are going to follow that. And the most important aspect of laziness, which I'd like to sort of bring up, is children who struggle with anxiety also sometimes appear to be lazy. Why this is important for us to address? As we compare more and we push children to compete more, anxiety has become a very, very strong emotional state for many children. And parents think anxiety can just be shaken off. It's not so easy, because the difference between fear and anxiety is that fear is a very specific response to a specific threat, and it's protective. But anxiety is a generalized response to a very diffuse threat. And I'll give you an example. Let's assume I'm a good student. I've never failed. I can experience only anxiety before an exam because I don't know what failure means. Whereas a student who's failed has a specific threat and they will have a specific response. So in situations where I may be socially awkward, a teenager can experience a lot of anxiety and they may try and avoid social interaction, which may be perceived as laziness. This is another very dangerous space. Another area is where the children are not able to relate to their parents, are not able to communicate with them, experience a lot of distress as a result of that because they're not able to communicate, not able to get their way, or not able to express themselves in the most healthy way. That can also be perceived as laziness. And it's very sad that adults end up moralizing and lecturing and trying to fix the laziness without understanding the contributory factor.
What is causing
the laziness?
Thank you so much, Aarti ma'am. Now, I hope all of us know the cause and we remove the word laziness and probably replace it with an appropriate word, ma'am.
I would actually here try and go back to restorative and supportive parenting. And when I say restorative and supportive parenting, it would be from a space where we understand where we are going wrong. A lot of change from the parents will make a difference in the way teenagers approach life.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for joining Samvadh.